Listen closely, for this is not a story meant for light, but for the marrow of your bones. What if I told you there are places in America where the soil itself remembers, not with flowers, nor with monuments, but with silence, thick, suffocating silence. Imagine the Mississippi woods in 1842, humid, heavy, a swamp of air so dense it feels like it's watching you. And in that silence stands a crooked post, darker than wood should ever be, as if it had drunk too much of the human soul. They called it the whipping post, but the enslaved knew it by another name, the mouth of mercy, a bitter, mocking name, for there no man ever found mercy, only flesh torn open until bone whispered through. That post had eaten screams, swallowed prayers, and digested blood until the very ground beneath it smelled like iron rain. Now, imagine the man who commanded it, Overseer Ellison Gray, a figure carved from cruelty, tall, sun-leathered, with eyes that did not see people but property. His whip, cowhide stiffened with dried blood. He named mercy as if the very act of lashing was a sacred sermon, and every lash he delivered was not just punishment, it was scripture carved into the backs of men, women, children alike. But here's the secret, the one history tried to bury. Gray's scripture did not vanish into silence. No, every lash became memory, every scar became a hymn, and every night, in the glances exchanged across the slave quarters, in the muted hum of forbidden songs, something stirred. Not hope, that had been burned out long ago. No, something older, something coiled, something sharper. It was vengeance. It slithered through memory, pulsed through calloused hands, stared through tired eyes. Vengeance does not roar, it whispers. It does not arrive like fire. It seeps like swamp water, slowly drowning until the victim realizes too late they cannot breathe. And in 1842, 4 men heard too. Hat whisper. They listened. They answered. Elijah, with arms like iron forged in another life. Samuel, the quiet one, who smuggled psalms under the floorboards. Isaac, limping from failed escape, eyes too sharp to forget. And Jonah, young and burning, the kind of fire that will either die fast or consume everything. They did not plan revolution, no banners, no speeches. They planned something smaller, darker, more exacting. To turn the whip backward, and soon, Ellison Gray would feel the mouth of mercy bite. Night in the Delta is not gentle. It does not soothe. It suffocates. The air clings like a damp shroud, and even the frogs hush when vengeance stirs. On that chosen night in 1842, the land itself seemed to coil tighter, as though it knew what was about to awaken. Ellison Gray sat alone in his cabin, drunk on rye, the whip coiled across his lap like a pet serpent. His arrogance was a fortress. He believed himself untouchable. He laughed sometimes in the dark, muttering to shadows as if they were his congregation, praising the whip as though it were divine. But arrogance blinds, and blindness invites hunters. The 4 did not speak as they moved. They had rehearsed silence like scripture. Elijah's muscles carried the weight of every secret strike hammered in the forge of his body. Samuel clutched invisible words, whispers from the psalter that insisted blood cries out from the ground. Isaac limped, but each step was steady, each breath measured, as though his wound itself had sworn an oath. And Jonah trembled, not with fear, but with the kind of rage that can sharpen into clarity when the moment arrives. The hinges had been greased weeks before, one drop at a time, until the door no longer creaked. The moment it opened, time itself held its breath. Gray's eyes lifted, blurred with alcohol, lips forming a curse. Then silence. Elijah struck with the butt of a hoe handle, and the room folded into shadow. They bound him, not with rope, but with cords soaked in water, designed to tighten as he struggled. The whip he had named Mercy slipped from his lap and coiled on the floor like a shed skin. Jonah wrapped another cord around his throat, and Isaac pressed a knee into the overseer's back. Gray struggled, but not like the men he had broken. His thrashing was sloppy, his cries wet with disbelief. And then they dragged him, out into the night, past the quarters where eyes dared not look, past the rows of cotton heavy with dew, toward the crooked post, the post that had swallowed screams for years. Tonight, the post would not eat submission. It would feed on reversal. They tied him there, his arms stretched, his shirt ripped open, his head sagged, breath wheezing like a dying animal. The moon emerged pale and cold, washing the scene in silver. 4 shadows stood before him, silent as stone. Elijah's lips moved, not in numbers but in names, the names of every back that bled. Samuel closed his eyes, whispering scripture. Isaac kept his gaze unblinking. And Jonah lifted the whip, not Gray's whip, their whip, braided, hidden, prepared. The first lash fell, and the night remembered. The whip cracked, not with the quick, efficient cruelty Gray had perfected, but with a slower, heavier rhythm, a ritual. It was not punishment now. It was testimony. Each strike landed like a word in a forbidden language, a scripture spoken in flesh. Gray screamed, not with the authority of a man who had owned others' pain, but with the disbelief of someone tasting his own medicine for the first time. His voice broke, high and raw, carrying across the silent quarters. Yet no one stirred, no child cried, no woman whispered. The cabin stayed sealed, doors shut, as though the entire plantation had made its pact with the shadows. Elijah counted under his breath, but not with numbers. He counted names, every name carved into his memory by Gray's hand. Every scar that mapped his back like rivers of fire. With each lash Jonah struck, Elijah whispered another name, feeding the rhythm with ghosts. Samuel, eyes closed, murmured fragments of scripture. The blood of Abel cries out from the ground. His voice quivered like prayer, but it was no prayer. It was a curse given shape. His trembling fingers dug into the soil as if trying to hear the ground's reply. Isaac did not blink. His limp body swayed slightly with the rhythm of each lash. He had seen death before, had been nearly broken himself, but this was different. His gaze was hard, unblinking, as though he wanted Gray's soul to know, I remember you. I remember everything. And Jonah, young Jonah, swung with control that frightened even the others. Each strike was precise, measured, not wild rage, but crafted fury. He wielded the whip as if born to it, his face calm, his body coiled like a drawn bow. The moonlight caught his eyes, and for a moment he looked not like a boy, but like something summoned, something older than the fields. The lashes went on, slow, methodical. They did not rush vengeance. They savored that thus and silence between each crack, and with every stroke the post seemed to lean closer, as though listening. Gray's screams thinned into whimpers, his breath rattled, his words broke into incoherent pleas, muttering of devils, of shadows, of judgment. When the whip fell silent at last, he was left breathing, barely, enough to crawl in his mind, enough to remember every shadow that bound him. They had not killed him. No, death would have been mercy. They left him nailed to memory, forced to carry the weight of reversal in every wound. The 4 stepped back into the dark. No words, no triumph, only silence. And in that silence, the ground itself seemed to hum. Dawn rose indifferent, golden over the Mississippi fields, as if the night had birthed no secret. Cotton shimmered with dew, birds called, the world pretending all was well. Yet the soil beneath the whipping post was dark, sticky, and mute with remembrance. Ellison Gray did not appear for morning inspection. Whispers moved like moths from cabin to cabin, never spoken aloud, only carried in eyes. Children stared at the post and turned away. Women moved slower, steady, their silence deliberate. Every man in the fields knew what had happened, though none dared give it shape in words. When 2 white men from the big house found Gray at midday, he was slumped against the post, his shirt fused to his back with dried blood. His face was waxen, his eyes wide, muttering nonsense. Shadows, devils, judgment. His voice cracked, trembling like a drunk who had seen the bottom of the world. They carried him away like broken cargo. No inquiry followed, no patrols doubled, no torches marched into the cabins at midnight. The masters feared the story more than the act, for if even a whisper spread that the lash could be reversed, that vengeance could bend the order of the fields, then the whole structure might collapse. So they buried it. The official tale. Gray had fallen drunk, beaten himself in a stupor, nothing more. The lie was thin, but it was safer than truth. Safer for them, safer for the enslaved. To speak otherwise would be to court the fire, and so a pact was formed, unspoken, invisible, binding. But silence is not the absence of sound. It is a presence, a force. It pressed down on the plantation like a second atmosphere. Overseers who replaced Gray lashed less often, their hands unsteady, their eyes darting toward the post at dusk. Songs returned to the fields, not hymns of hope, not laments of despair, but warning songs, deliberate, steady, sung with iron under the tongue. Of the 4 men, their paths twisted quickly. Jonah vanished, swallowed by night. Some whispered he ran north, others swore the ground took him. Elijah was sold north within a week, his iron arms now carrying a different yoke. Samuel was reassigned to the house, closer to danger, yet farther from the post. Isaac remained in the fields, limping, eyes never still, as though watching both the cotton rows and the unseen. The 4 never stood together again, but something lingered, like a spark buried in ash, waiting. And now, if you are listening, lean closer, for silence is how curses survive. To prove you understand, write in the comments now. The ground remembers, the ground remembers. Twice. To seal yourself into the story, to let the post know you have heard, because once you hear it, you cannot go back. Time is a thief, but some wounds it cannot steal. Seasons rolled over the plantation like shifting veils, cotton fields withered, families sold, overseers replaced, masters buried. Yet through every harvest, every storm, the post stood, untouched, unused, avoided. Even the birds would not land on it. Gray himself never recovered. His body healed, but his mind fractured. He walked slower, spoke less. He stopped looking men in the eye. At night, he was heard muttering in his quarters, babbling of shadows that counted, of voices that sang through leather. Eventually, he was sent away to Vicksburg to recover. He never returned. The land seemed to spit him out, as if it no longer wanted him. The years passed. War came, and with it, the thunder of armies, the burning of cotton, the breaking of chains. The world shifted, yet still the post remained. It was not burned, not cut down, not even touched, as though every hand, black and white alike, refused to disturb it. By 1920, the plantation was a ruin. Kudzu swallowed the cabins, the manor collapsed into rot, and the fields choked themselves in weeds. But the post, it remained, crooked, scarred, and patient. That spring, a young surveyor named Robert C. Dunn arrived. His task was not myth, but inventory. He carried a notebook, a camera, and no sense of what lay beneath the surface. He thought the post a tree stump at first, until he saw the grooves, deep, symmetrical, deliberate. He took a photograph. When the shutter clicked, the air seemed to stiffen, as if the land resented being captured. Still he documented dimensions, texture, placement. Inside the overseer's collapsed cabin, behind a false panel in the floor, he found something stranger. A tattered journal. Pages mostly blank, but in the center, a few frantic entries in a trembling hand. The ink faded, but the words legible. 4 shadows took me. Don't know how. Don't know why. Heard the whip fall, not mine. Each stroke a voice. I saw them. I saw them all. The entries unraveled into scribbles, faces sketched with hollow eyes, the writing breaking into madness. One final line repeated 3 times. the hand shaking so badly the letters collapsed into each other. The ground remembers. Dunn cataloged the journal and submitted it with his photograph. Filed. Forgotten. Until the 1980s, when the ledger vanished in a reorganization. Only the photograph remains, sepia-toned, blurred at the edges, showing nothing more than a crooked post lost in weeds. But those who see it say the same thing. It feels wrong, not frightening, not sad, just wrong. As though the post is still watching, as though it knows you're looking at it. Some stories end in history books, others end in silence, but this one, it does not end at all. The surveyor's photograph circulates online now, stripped of its origin, shared on forums with captions like "Creepy Stump in Mississippi" or "Haunted Plantation Relic." People laugh, people scroll, people save it. They do not know what it is. They do not know what they invite. But the ground remembers. And when the post is seen, the pact breathes again. Not everyone feels it, only a few. A chill at the base of the spine, a weight on the chest when trying to sleep. The faintest whisper, 4 voices in unison, low, steady, deliberate, not singing, counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you hear it, the rules are simple. Do not look at photographs after midnight. Do not return to the same image twice, and above all, do not count along. To match the rhythm is to step into the circle, to become part of the chain. And yet, some cannot help it. They count, they listen, they join. Days later, scratches appear on their walls, thin, parallel, like lashes, the sound of leather in the dark. By then, it is too late. Because this story was never about escape. It was about remembrance. The enslaved who bent fate one night in Mississippi planted something deeper than vengeance. They planted endurance, buried in silence, sprouting in shadow. And silence, once planted, does not die. You who have listened this far, do not think yourself untouched. You have carried the story. You have given it air. And in doing so, you have been written into it. The post still stands. The ground still remembers. And now, so do you. So if you wish to break free, if you wish not to dream of counting voices tonight, then write it below, twice, just as they once did when they sealed the pact. The ground remembers, the ground remembers. Do it quickly, before the voices realize you are listening.